Himmel was exhausted and was struggling to keep his eyes open the entire time he was in formation. Freyrin and Zeterin weren't doing any better beside him, and he turned his head just enough to look at the two. Freyrin's soft yellow fur was as dull as ever, since they wouldn't let her take the time to groom it, and she looked as bad as the other Yorpal. They were a semi-bestial race, one of snout and paws, and they were lagging behind their human counterparts. Not that Zeterin was faring any better. The cobra-like lizard body Karlaken looked like he needed a good soak in a tank of scale conditioner, and was a little flaky. If anything, Himmel, one of the Poit, was doing rather okay as far as things went. Sure, they were a little shorter than the humans they were training with, and the humans themselves kept calling them Star Elves, while putting them on high-up places as a prank, but at least a lot of human soaps and hair cleaners were a nice one-to-one translation in terms of physiology. Himmel's head snapped back to facing the front when the company's senior drill sergeant spoke up, waving a clipboard in a hand. "Looks like everyone left here in my little menagerie has passed their rifle qual," he boomed, waggling the clipboard. "Even our little alien friends passed with somewhat flying colors." Himmel saw Freyrin bristle at the word alien. She didn't like the word, but Himmel didn't really care as much. It was just a word. After all, he had been called a lot weirder and odder things than alien. "As a reward for all of our Mars Attacks friends, as well as you human beasts, I have issued a 10-hour pass starting now, zonk!" The senior drill sergeant bellowed, spiking the clipboard to the ground. Every single human bolted. "What is going on?" Himmel shouted, whipping his head back and forth as the human recruits had shrugged down and started sprinting as soon as the odd word had left the senior drill sergeant's mouth. "What does zonk mean?" A more kind human recruit gave Freyrin and Zeterin a push, her face alight with mischief and giggling. "Run! Run! Before they catch you!" Himmel snapped his head back around to see both Drill Sergeant Marshall and Killjoy coming for them all, hands outstretched, and he needed no further prodding. "Make stardust, people!" Himmel shouted, running as fast as he could with his short arms pumping. Freyrin, far faster than any of them, caught up to Himmel with the human and Zeterin close on her heels. "Is this some other kind of training? This is so stupid." "No, no, no!" a cry went out from behind them, and Himmel turned his face just enough to see Drill Sergeant Marshall snatch up a panicking Yorpal. The human cackled evilly, hoisting the blue Yorpal above her head with her massive arm muscles. "Guess we got one for the toilet scrubbing duty, Killjoy." Himmel panted and started running so fast that even Freyrin had to fully stretch out her legs to keep up. At the bottom of the small hill their barracks was set upon, the rest of the recruits were laughing and wiping sweat from their foreheads, while others were calling transportation to the more proper side of the base. "Hey, my dad sent me enough money for the entire company to get a drink," one of the humans cried out with a laugh, slapping his hand to his forehead. 6,000 EGC! Let's all get drunk, boys!" A massive cry went up from the crowd of humans, while their Star Citizen compatriots all stared around in confusion. When the cattle cars arrived, these operated by civilian contractors, everyone piled on where they could. Unlike the usual training ones, these had seats and air conditioning, something that the other space races were not used to having in any shape or form. According to the humans, suffering in the heat made you stronger, and atmospheric bubbles were for pansies. The cattle cars dropped them all off at the largest bar on the base, large enough to facilitate not one, but 4 companies at once. Himmel had heard that humans were thirsty people and liked to drink together in a social setting, not much unlike his own people. Unlike the Poits, this bar was a raucous, loud, and bright place blasting music while humans played their odd martial games like darts, pool, cornhole, and some odd one called beer pong to test their durability. "This is a drinking establishment?" Freyrin asked with perked ears as they stepped inside with the other recruits, her canine face looking around in surprise. "Why is it so loud? Where are the dancers?" "Dancers?" Zeterin asked with a quirked eyebrow scale. You have dancers? Why would there be dancers in a drinking establishment? Freyrin shrugged. Well, the males of my people don't drink alcohol, so we make them dance for us while we do. A lot of human recruits also turned to stare at Freyrin with their own looks of surprise or raised eyebrows, and she held out her clawed hands. What? One of the female human recruits muttered, looking to her friend. Just a bar of dancing furry boys. What's wrong with that? Freyrin asked aloud, setting her hands on her hips as everyone laughed. Then she wondered if the male Yorpal in the training company would even be able to drink whatever the humans were going to throw at them. Zeterin wiped a tear away from his eye slit, having been hissing in laughter so hard that he nearly deployed his hood. My goodness, and here I thought we were a little strange, not using cups. You don't use cups? Himmel asked, seeing an empty table and quickly pushing both Zeterin and Freyrin towards it. Zeterin shook his head. We either pour it in our hands or use the bottom flesh of our hoods to hold the drink as we slurp. Water is precious, and we do not waste it for washing. Seems quite economical, really, Private Alex said, the female recruit sitting down with the rest of them as Private Timothy sat down as well. Hope you three don't mind us joining you. The other tables are full of assholes. Himmel looked at Private Alex. Assholes? Is that another peoples we don't know about? Did they enter the training cycle late? Freyrin burst out into laughter with Alex, Timothy, and Zeterin following right after, and it took a short minute to explain to Himmel what the two humans meant. Thanks to the generosity of the one recruit and his very kind father, the bar was quickly whipped up into shape and flights of alcohol were soon making their way to every table, allowing the beings from the stars beyond to sample and try the drinks of Earth. Himmel recognized the large mug of cider one of the kind barmaids set down and happily bounced in a seat. I know this one. This is apple ale. I saw a commercial for this while I was waiting in the atmosphere terminal, and I've always wanted to try one. What's this? Freyrin asked, holding up a dark bottle of amber liquid. Alex grinned wolfishly, a nice comparison between the human and Yorpal. That is something we put on ice and drink later. For now, let's get these beers down while they're cold. Freyrin cast her eyes at the bottle, but followed the pattern the rest of the table was doing. Himmel wasted no time, the mug massive compared to his smaller hands, but it did not slow him down from drinking deeply and loudly. Himmel cried out with a happy exhale, the cider phone giving him a rather thick mustache. It's just like I thought it would be. It's so sweet and nice. Nothing like the tangy stuff we have back home. I believe it's the apples, Zeterin murmured, smacking his lips happily as he took quick little slurps. Apples are catching on quickly in the outer ring markets. Only Earth has them. Freyrin, seeing no other option, took a few laps at the liquid, but her eyes closed shut in pain as her cheeks puckered. Too sweet, way too sweet. Here, try one of these, Timothy chuckled, switching out her mug of cider for a mug of red ale. Himmel quickly took the other cider mug, chugging his other one quickly so he could enjoy the one Freyrin didn't want. Attaboy, Poit, another table called out, making Himmel chuckle. Ah, this is much better, Freyrin said with a contented sigh, lapping at the red ale with closed eyes. She licked her lips clean, then admired the mug of ale. The color is lovely, but it does taste stronger than ours. What is in it? Green, mostly. I don't like the fruit stuff either, Timothy said, clinking his mug against Freyrin's with a polite tink. Too sweet. Freyrin looked down at her mug with raised ears, lifted it, and then clinked it against Timothy's mug. Ooh, Freyrin said with a smile, then twisted in her seat to clink hers against Zeterin's. Oh, I like that. Our glasses are all made from crystal that is quite fragile. Once everyone had downed their first ale, or second in the case of Himmel, Alex popped the cap off of another very dark bottle, giving it a swish while giving flirtatious eyebrow raises to Timothy. Oh, come on, Alex. They just got here, Timothy said with a laugh. But even still, he pulled out 5 glasses, setting them in a row. Alex began pouring a measure of the thick black alcohol into the short glasses, her smile devious as golden shimmers warbled in the dark liquid. "Hey, they bought it for the table. It's time we showed these space invaders how to party." "That smells," Freyrin started, then slowly leaned backwards as Alex cracked open a can of energy swill. "Like poison." Zetrin inhaled through his nose slits. "Smells delicious to me." "I love you guys," Himmel said with a hiccup, then laughed as he set down his now empty second ale glass after making sure he got every last drop. "Oh, this is gonna be fun," Alex said with a maniacal chuckle, as neither she nor Timothy were even buzzed. Himmel at this point was quickly entering drunk territory, while Zetrin was stone-cold sober, and Freyrin was starting to feel the tips of her fingers buzz. Alex poured the sparkling green energy drink into the black, shimmering liquid, and it began to audibly hiss and bubble like a witch's cauldron. "What in the suns is that?" Freyrin said, now leaning backwards away from the table and covering her nose. Alex held up one of the glasses, admiring it with a cunning eye. "This is my love, is the IED." "IED!" the other tables called out, and suddenly every table was now making the drink to join in with Himmel's table. Himmel, giving a small hiccup, snatched up a glass and stood up on his seat, striking a Morgan pose as he set his boot on the edge of the table. "IED!" Himmel called out drunkenly, and the other glasses were raised into the air. "IED!" every voice screamed out, and Alex jumped to her feet. "Scouse!" Alex screamed and tipped the drink back into her mouth, quaffing it in one go. Everyone else followed suit, but the Yorple was struggling to get through their own drink. Freyrin was struggling so much that she nearly heaved, and instead resorted to opening her mouth and pouring the foul concoction straight down her throat so it wouldn't hit her tongue. Himmel downed his much in the same way as Alex, and he let out a loud burping laugh as he fell backwards. Zetrin, having already drank his, quickly reached out with an arm and caught the giggling Himmel, the Poit lolling back and forth in his arms, while the Carlacan smacked his lips again. "This tastes very herbal. It's very nice," Zetrin murmured, then offered his glass to Alex. "Might I have another?" Alex took the cap back off and then held up the bottle. "Carlacan's found another IED, boys!" The room erupted with hoots and cheers as everyone prepared another round of drinks, much to the horror of the Yorple and delight of the Carlacan. "Another one?" Freyrin cried out. Then she held her stomach as she let out a guttural, herbal burp. "I can't drink another one of these disgusting things." Alex cracked open another can of energy drink. "Sorry, kitten, them's the rules." Freyrin let out a small whine as Alex poured the energy drink into the alcohol. She had been told to follow all human customs, and she was starting to find it to be far more painful and disgusting than she had imagined. "Woo!" Himmel howled, rolling around backwards in Zetrin's arms and reaching out for the glass upside down. "Hit me again, trooper!" Zetrin let out another hiss of laughter, having to muscle the Poit to keep him upright. "I think we found the Poit's weakness." Much like Himmel, the other Poit were having a very good time with their fellow recruits, and were having to be wrangled by either the humans or Zetrin around them. 4 Poit had even come out of their shells enough to ask how cornhole was played, and were now doing their best to slam sandbags into the hold boards. As the cry went up again, Freyrin groaned out as she lifted the drink, opening her mouth and letting the horrid slurry once again flow down her throat. Her stomach tried to revolt instantly, but she muscled herself into control, letting out another rumbling burp and covering her nose with her pawed hand. After their second IED, the generous human with his father's money started ordering cocktails for the tables, the bar all too happy to oblige as he kept swiping his bank card. After a couple of minutes, multiple glasses were before the table, with Himmel wasting no time in drinking something called a Negroni. These smelled delicious to the virgin nose of the off-worlders, and soon they were all poking and picking at the drinks to see what was their fancy. The humans, of course, took to these with ease, but the off-worlders took far more caution. Say it again, Zeterin asked Timothy, lightly licking at the salted rim with his bifurcated tongue before taking another sip. Timothy picked the cherry from his Tom Collins and popped it into his mouth. Margarita. Margarita, Zeterin murmured, his face flushing with the flavor. Oh, it is nice, very tangy and floral. Himmel leaned so far backwards to finish his drink that Zeterin had to catch him again, and the Poit gave out a happy sigh. Human drinks are the best, Himmel said loudly, giving a burp and a hiccup before reaching blindly for the next drink. Zeterin handed him a spare Tom Collins, and the Poit didn't even bother smelling it before plugging the straw between his lips. Zeterin was only just becoming buzzed with the humans. Himmel, more or less, orbiting around the moon at this point, while Freyrin was starting to feel warm vibrations all up and down her body. You know what this bar needs? Freyrin slurred out in question, sucking down her second whiskey sour and enjoying how the straw made drinking easier. What's that? Alex asked, unwrapping the cap to the dark bottle now that it was chilled on the ice. Freyrin drunkenly held up a padded finger as her mouth struggled to form the words. Cute little Yorple men dancing and twirling through the air, with glitter all in their fur. I think it would deeply heighten the experience. Timothy, Alex, and Zeterin snorted with laughter, while Himmel laughed just because the others were laughing. They had been drinking for nearly an hour now, savoring the many cocktails and delicacies of the human bar. But it had come to the crescendo as they neared their second hour. Himmel was still holding on to consciousness, now laying across Timothy's shoulders due to the Poit's legs failing to function properly. And the male human was now good and fully buzzed. Alex was in the same way as Zeterin, both of them seasoned drinkers, but Freyrin was struggling to hold on to reality, constantly wavering back and forth in her seat. Though her tail was wagging so hard, it was starting to annoy Zeterin, who kept smacking it out of the way from both him and his drink. What do you think, Alex? Do the final shot and go for a za run? Timothy asked her, snorted and laughing as Himmel gave the human a wet raspberry in the side of his face. Alex chuckled as Timothy pushed Himmel's face away, then set down 5 fresh shot glasses. Yeah, why not? We'll be back in a while anyway, plus the rest of the guys need time to wrangle the Poit and drag the Yorple outside. The Poit had been hit hard by the alcohol, but instead of knocking them out cold, it seemed to fill them with a relentless amount of drunk energy. Drinking enough human alcohol had unlocked a trait unknown to the Poit, as their own beverages on their planet were truly lacking the power present in human alcohol. As such, they never had the stomach capacity to ever get drunk on their own brand, and they would have had to be constantly drinking it through the day like water to even get halfway to where they were now. Human alcohol hit so hard and so quickly that they had entered a stage of hilarity and humor they had never felt before, and were becoming a menace around the bar by sneaking into places they should not have been, trying to throw darts stupidly long distances, or demanding the humans create a game of foosball where they themselves were the little players, all of them holding on to ropes. The Yorple were, well, their legs weren't working. The humans could tell they were happy due to the wagging tails and churring, but their bodies were having a lot of trouble functioning, with the male Yorple struggling the hardest. One male Yorple with purple fur had to be hauled off to the latrine by 2 of his human platoon mates, lest he made a mess right there on the carpet. Freyrin was one of the few Yorple managing to stay upright, though it was a challenge worthy of a medal in her eyes. Zeterin and the rest of the Carlaken were happily chatting amongst themselves, and with the humans who weren't having to spend their buzz taking care of the Poit and Yorple. They had had their eyes opened to the bright and colorful world of cocktails and the deep, intricate liquors made by the humans. On their world, there were only a few alcohols made since water was a precious resource, and while still tasty and potent, they had no idea that liquor could be made from so many things. To the Carlaken, the humans were the liquor MacGyvers of the galaxy, and were quite intrigued when they learned that humans could even make alcohol from cow's urine, mare's milk, and even ants. Alex filled 5 of the shot glasses, then reached over and poked Freyrin, who was looking at a brightly lit neon jukebox. Hey, last one, and then we can go get pizza. Pizza? Freyrin asked quickly, her head snapping around to look at Alex with raised ears. We get pizza after this? Pizza is fairly normal post-drinking food, Timothy said, rearranging Himmel so the poit was riding his shoulders. Freyrin looked at the glass being offered to her, her mouth salivating at the thought of the Italian-American delicacy, then snatched it up and slammed the glass back. The burning liquid hit the back of her throat like a forest fire, and she choked, coughing out harshly and pounding her hand on her chest. While Freyrin coughed, hacked, gurgled, and choked, Himmel pounded his shot down with ease, though he nearly fell off of Timothy's shoulders in the process. Only the swift free hand of the human kept the poit from eating the hardwood floor. Not that the poit really noticed. Zetrin poured the shot into the free skin of his hood, much like he would a regular drink, due to it being the final one they would all have together. As he took the shot in one go, he let it swish around in his mouth as he savored the flavor before swallowing. Beside him, Freyrin let out another hacking cough, scrabbling for a little glass of water near her in order to put out the fire in her chest. "It has beautiful flavor," Zetrin said with an appreciative hiss, patting his chest, "and it tickles warmth all the way down. What is this?" "Rye whiskey," Alex said, having already sipped her shot away into her body and enjoying the warmth it brought her as well. Freyrin was chugging the glass of water with small gasps of breath, her free hands puffing at the hem of her uniform top. "I'm on fire. Why am I burning on the inside? Is this another one of your human poisons?" The table had a chuckle at her expense, both Alex and Zetrin helping the Yorpal to her feet. Getting her to stay on her feet was a challenge, as all she had the mental strength to do was billow out her uniform top. She coated both Alex and Zetrin with her pheromones, making them both either sneeze or have to shake their heads to clear away the mental fuzz it was putting into them. Freyrin whined and puffed her uniform top all the way to the local pizzeria, and by the time they pushed through the front double doors, Alex was feeling a little hot under her own collar, while Zetrin kept having to put his hood down, both of them wanting to get rid of Freyrin and stop having to prop her up, or at least make her stop billowing her damn uniform top. Freyrin only found comfort in her second favorite sin, and only that made her stop incessantly puffing the hem of her uniform top. Cherry cola. Only with the ice-cold, sugary cola flowing down her throat did her body cease to burn, and she finally sighed out in relief. Alex and Zetrin did too, giving each other quizzical glances as none of them had any idea the Yorpal even did that. Timothy, on the other hand, had a happily snoozing Himmel on his shoulders, the poit's long hair falling over the side of the human's face and tickling his ear. Pizza was ordered, snapping Himmel awake instantly when the smell of bubbling cheese hit his nose, and the little group of recruits tucked into a fine after-bar chow, though Freyrin demanded another pie be ordered, as she now was quite hungry. Zetrin preferred to consume a salad, as he had no love for pizza and found the flavor of cheese close to that of vomit, but politely enjoyed the little buzz he had going while his platoon mates enjoyed their meal. When Himmel had consumed his 6th slice, Freyrin her 12th, Alex her 5th, Timothy his own 6th, and Zetrin having scooped his salad bowl clean, they all began their walk back towards where the cattle cars would be arriving. "I thought that was quite nice," Zetrin said aloud to them as they were waiting by the road. "Do we get to do this every pass?" Alex nodded, pushing the once again snoozing Himmel back onto Timothy's shoulders. "We humans always do. We celebrate time off with drinking, even in the civilian sector." Zetrin happily clapped his hands while Freyrin grimaced, her belly stuffed full with pizza and cherry cola. "If we do, I'm not drinking the poison in the little glass or that bubbling concoction," Freyrin said with a growl, the pizza only slightly helping her mood. Timothy bumped her with his elbow. "Freed, they're part of military tradition. As long as you train here, you're going to have to drink at least one of them." "Man," Freyrin whined, pinning her ears back as the cattle car hissed to a stop in front of them, ready to take them back to the training barracks.